Log entry 1. Pay attention. You know that feeling when you're simultaneously the biggest and smartest person in the room, but you'd give anything to be neither? Welcome to my world. I'm Jacob Kane, and at 11 years old, I'm already pushing over 6 feet tall. Oh, and I have a brain that makes Einstein look like he's struggling with basic arithmetic. Fun times, right? As I duck my head to avoid decapitation by the school bus doorframe, again, I can't help but wonder if the universe is playing some cosmic joke on me. I mean, who decided to put the mind of a genius into the body of a preteen Hulk? If you're listening, universe, your sense of humor sucks. I shuffle into Mrs. Walter's 7th grade classroom, my knees already plotting their revenge against the undersized desk I'm about to crush. As I wedge myself in, the desk creaks in protest. I swear I can hear it whimpering. Why me? Join the club, buddy. Roll call. I raise my hand, which looks like it belongs to a linebacker, rather than a kid who's supposed to be solving for X. Mrs. Walters gives me that look. You know the one. It's a mix of awe and pity, like she's watching a giraffe try to use a drinking fountain. Gym class. Oh, joy. As we line up for pull-ups, I hang back, hoping Mrs. Walters will forget about me. Fat chance. I watch as Tyler, all 50 pounds of him soaking wet, struggles to do a single pull-up. Poor kid looks like a spider doing the Macarena. Then it's my turn. I grab the bar, and suddenly, I'm the main attraction at the freak show. 2, 5, 10 pull-ups. I can practically hear the thoughts racing through my classmates' minds. Is he even human? Sorry to disappoint folks, but last time I checked, I didn't have any radioactive spider bites or secret government super soldier serum in my system. Just your average, everyday giant child genius combo. The shuttle run is next. I explode off the line, my legs sprinting in a blur of motion. As I cross the finish line, leaving the others in the dust, I catch Mrs. Walters' eye. She's scribbling furiously on her clipboard, probably trying to figure out if she can get me drug tested or entered into the Olympics. Maybe both. But here's the kicker, the real punchline to this cosmic joke. While I'm out here crushing physical fitness tests like they're made of papier-mâché, my mind is busy calculating the aerodynamic efficiency of my movements and the chemical reactions happening in my muscles. It's like having a supercomputer trapped in the body of a baby Bigfoot. Later, at the science fair, I'm showcasing my vacuum chamber experiment. It's light years beyond the baking soda volcanoes surrounding it. As I adjust the gauges, lost in the beautiful simplicity of inert gas reactions, I almost forget about my unique situation. But the universe isn't done with me yet. Enter Brad Thompson, captain of the football team, and living proof that evolution can, in fact, go backwards. He swaggers over, all swagger and no substance, ready to remind me of my place in the pecking order. Well, if it ain't the freak, he sneers. I straighten up, towering over him. For a moment, I consider the satisfying crunch his bones would make if I decided to use my strength. But that's not who I am. I'm better than that. I'm smarter than that. Then Brad makes the mistake of touching my experiment. As alarms wail and warnings flash, time slows down. In that moment, I see 1,000 possible futures branching out before me. Most of them end with Brad learning a painful lesson about messing with forces beyond his comprehension. Instead, I choose the path of least resistance. With lightning speed, I grab his wrist. Our eyes meet, and for once, I let him see the truth. I'm not just a freak. I'm something he can't understand, something that doesn't fit into his small, simple world. As I release him and turn back to my experiment, I can't help but wonder, is this my origin story? Am I destined to be a hero, a villain, or something in between? One thing's for sure. Middle school is going to be interesting. And to you, reading. Watching this unfold from the safety of your side of the fourth wall, buckle up. This is just the beginning. Log. Entry 2. Watch closely. The rest of the science fair passed in a blur of forced smiles and awkward conversations. I could feel Brad's eyes on me all night, like a shark circling its prey. As the gym slowly emptied, I meticulously packed up my experiment, each piece a reminder of how I didn't fit in this world of baking soda volcanoes and potato clocks. You'd think being built like a linebacker and having a brain that could run circles around Stephen Hawking would make life easier. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. In this small town of Black Creek, I'm about as welcome as a virus at a birthday party. Even my parents look at me like I'm some kind of alien that crash-landed in their living room. Pro tip: when you're lost in thought about your cosmic isolation, always keep one eye on your surroundings. Otherwise, you might end up like me, suddenly realizing you're alone in a dark gym with Brad and his two meat-headed sidekicks. Looks like the freak wants another lesson, Brad sneered, cracking his knuckles with all the subtlety of a foghorn. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I could snap Brad like a twig. I could probably use his buddies as makeshift baseball bats to hit him out of the park. But that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. So, I stood there, my mind racing through countless scenarios, each ending with me walking away the victor. But sometimes, the real victory isn't in fighting back. It's in enduring. Come on, Brad. I sighed, sounding far more tired than any 11-year-old should. Don't you ever get bored of this? Brad's response was as eloquent as ever, a fist to my stomach. As I doubled over, gasping for air, his cronies joined in, their kicks finding my ribs, my back, my legs. Pain exploded across my body, but my mind remained clear. With each blow, I calculated the force, the angle, the potential damage. It was almost fascinating, in a detached sort of way. As I lay there, curled up on the gym floor, I couldn't help but laugh. It was a wheezing, painful sound, but it stopped Brad and his goons in their tracks. "What's so funny, freak?" Brad demanded, his foot poised for another kick. I looked up at him, meeting his gaze. "I was just thinking," I managed between gasps, "about how much energy you're wasting. Did you know that the average punch only transfers about 15% of its kinetic energy to the target? The rest is lost to heat and sound." Brad's face contorted in confusion. It was like watching a caveman try to understand calculus. "What the hell are you talking about?" I slowly pushed myself up, wincing at the pain. "I'm saying, Brad, that all this effort you're putting into hurting me, it's mostly wasted. Just like you're wasting your potential by being a bully." For a moment, just a moment, I saw something change in Brad's eyes. Understanding? Shame? But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by his usual mask of anger, bravado. "Whatever, freak," he spat, but the venom was gone from his voice. "Let's go, guys." As they skulked away, I allowed myself a small smile. I may be bruised and battered, but I hadn't let them break me. I hadn't stooped to their level. Sometimes, true strength isn't in the muscles or the mind. It's in the heart, in the ability to endure, to rise above. Log entry 3. You've been warned. As I limped home under the setting sun, my body aching but my spirit unbroken, I couldn't help but wonder. What does the future hold for a boy who's too strong to fight and too smart to fit in? It started small. A few weeks after the beating, Brad tripped down the stairs at school. Nothing serious, just a sprained ankle. But as I walked past him, sprawled on the floor, our eyes met. For a fraction of a second, I let my mask slip. I let him see the cold calculation behind my eyes, the slight upturn of my lips. His face paled. He knew. You see, I'd finally put my oversized brain to use. A loose floorboard here. A slippery patch there. Nothing traceable, nothing obvious. Just a series of unfortunate accidents that seemed to follow Brad and his cronies wherever they went. But it wasn't enough. The rage inside me, the hurt, the years of being an outcast, it all bubbled up, demanding more. And that's when things got interesting. Remember my vacuum chamber experiment? Turns out with a few modifications, it can do more than just test inert gas reactions. Much more. It was a quiet Sunday night when I snuck into the school, my altered vacuum chamber tucked under one arm. The security system? Child's play for a mind like mine. I made my way to Brad's locker, my heart pounding not with fear, but with anticipation. The device fit perfectly inside. As I closed the locker door, I couldn't help but smile. Tomorrow morning when Brad opened his locker, he'd get a nasty surprise. Nothing lethal, of course. I'm not a monster. At least, not yet. But a face full of highly concentrated, mildly hallucinogenic gas. That should make for an interesting Monday morning. As I turned to leave, a movement caught my eye. Mrs. Walters stood at the end of the hallway, her eyes wide with shock. And was that fear? "Jacob," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" For a moment, I considered lying. But what was the point? She'd seen me. And besides, a part of me, a dark, growing part, wanted her to know. Wanted everyone to know. "Just evening the odds, Mrs. Walters," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Isn't that what you always taught us? To stand up for ourselves?" She took a step back, her hand fumbling for her phone. "This isn't standing up for yourself, Jacob. This is wrong." I tilted my head, studying her like an animal observing a prey. Wrong? Was it wrong when they beat me? When they called me a freak? When you all stood by and did nothing? With each question, I took a step forward. Mrs. Walters pressed herself against the wall, her phone clattering to the floor. I'm sorry, Jacob," she stammered. "We should have done more. We can still help you." I laughed then, a sound that seemed to chill the very air around us. "Help me? Oh, Mrs. Walters, I don't need help anymore. I've found my purpose." As I loomed over her, I saw my reflection in her terrified eyes. Gone was the awkward, self-conscious boy. In his place stood something else. Something powerful. Something dark. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. I smiled. And it wasn't a kind smile. "I'm going to change the world, Mrs. Walters, starting with this town." As I walked away, leaving her trembling in the dark hallway, I couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. The old Jacob was gone, burned away by years of torment and isolation. In his place stood someone, something. Log entry 4, the boy in the sky. The morning after my nocturnal visit to the school, chaos reigned supreme. As I had anticipated, Brad's locker had become ground zero for a spectacle that would make the evening news look like a kindergarten playground scuffle. The hallways were a sea of confusion. Students ran in all directions, their faces contorted in fear or wonderment, depending on how close they'd been to Brad's locker when he'd opened it. The air was filled with the sickly sweet scent of my specially crafted hallucinogenic compound, its tendrils seeping into every corner of the building. I sat at my desk, watching the pandemonium unfold with detached amusement. Brad was in the center of it all, his eyes wide and unfocused, babbling about giant spiders crawling out of his locker. Part of me felt a twinge of, not quite remorse, but something close to it. The rest of me savored every second of his torment. Mrs. Walters burst into the classroom, her face ashen. Our eyes met. She knew. She remembered our encounter last night. As she opened her mouth to speak, likely to call me out, the ground beneath us shuddered. At first, I thought it was just another part of the chaos I'd orchestrated. But then, the tremors intensified. Books tumbled from shelves, light fixtures swayed ominously, and hairline cracks spiderwebbed across the walls. That's when I felt it. A surge of something. Power? Energy? My vision blurred, then sharpened to crystal clarity. I could suddenly see the tiniest details, the individual fibers in Mrs. Walters' sweater, the microscopic dust motes swirling in the air. As another violent tremor rocked the building, I stood up. My desk, which had always felt like a cramped cage, now seemed laughably small. I realized with a start that I was floating several inches above the ground. "Jacob?" Mrs. Walters' voice was barely a whisper, tinged with equal parts fear and awe. I turned to face her and caught my reflection in the classroom window. My eyes glowed with an unearthly blue light, and faint arcs of electricity danced across my skin. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't just puberty hitting early. This was something far beyond the realm of normal human experience. "Everyone out," I said, my voice resonating with a new authority. "Now." The classroom emptied in seconds, leaving me alone with Mrs. Walters. She took a hesitant step towards me, her hand outstretched. "Jacob, please. Whatever's happening, we can help you. Just sprawl." I cut her off with a laugh that shook the remaining books from their shelves. "Help, Mrs. Walters? You all think I'm broken, don't you?" With that, I shot upward, crashing through the ceiling as if it were made of paper. I ascended rapidly, the school shrinking beneath me until I hovered high above it, surveying the town that had been my prison for so long. Students and teachers poured out of the building, pointing up at me in shock. In the distance, I could hear sirens approaching. Good. Let them all come. Let them all see what they've created. I raised my hands, feeling the power surge through me. The sky darkened, clouds swirling ominously overhead. Lightning forming between my fingertips, and with a thought, I sent a bolt streaking downward. It struck the football field, leaving a smoking crater where the end zone used to be. "Citizens of Black Creek," my voice boomed, somehow carrying to every corner of the town. "For years you've called me a freak, an outsider. Well, today I'm going to show you just how right you were." With that, I unleashed my newfound powers. Cars lifted off the ground, swirling in a metallic tornado. The winds howled, uprooting trees and sending debris flying. Each demonstration of power felt like a release, years of pent-up frustration and anger finding an outlet at last. As I reveled in my godlike abilities, a small part of me, the part that was still Jacob Kane, the lonely boy genius, whispered that this was wrong. That power didn't have to mean destruction. That I could be better than those who had tormented me. I could be the bigger man, the savior they desperately needed. For a moment, I hesitated. I looked down at the chaos I'd wrought, at the terrified faces of my classmates and neighbors. I saw Brad, cowering behind an overturned bus, his earlier bravado replaced by naked fear. And then, Just as I was considering stopping this madness, a memory surfaced. A particularly brutal beating, Brad's sneering face looming over me as his fists connected again and again, the mocking laughter of onlookers, the cold indifference of teachers who should have protected me. Mercy was a luxury for those who had never known true suffering. And I had suffered enough. This is only the beginning, I declared, my voice echoing across the devastated landscape. You wanted a monster? Well, congratulations, you've got one. As emergency vehicles screeched into view and news helicopters circled overhead, I allowed myself a satisfied smile. The world had changed forever, and I was at the epicenter of that change. Jacob Kane, the freak, the outsider, was gone. In his place stood something new, something powerful, something that would make the world tremble. Let them try to stop me. Let them send their armies, their superheroes, their best and brightest. I'll be waiting. After all, I've always been the smartest person in the room. Now I'm the most powerful too. And this is just the beginning. For those who crave love more than life itself, a glance from the object of her desire is a tiny speck of hope. So Louis Lin thinks, as she walks through the village kicking the sand path on her 16th birthday to buy herself a gift in the market. By her 18th, her hope of love has grown to melancholy when the man she loves meets the object of his affection in secret. We should marry without telling her and move away that night so she can't make you feel guilty. True, but Louis Lin has almost a sixth sense for secrets, so I bet she has guessed ours. Don't be silly, my dear. She will forget us and eventually have a man of her own to cherish if she cannot see you anymore. The bride-to-be rests her head on her man's chest, and on her tiptoes kisses his plump, moist bottom lip, so he quivers and pulls her close. His eyes reflect the cooking fire whose flames licks the bottom of the black, hot dinner pot. Food will be ready soon, my love. Please bring the rolls from the oven and stoke the fire to boil water for my bath. I will be ready after our food is settled. Louis Lin is in the shadows to hear that Song Village is their isolated newlywed location. A business village where musical instruments are made for the king's orchestra. The man Louis Lin adores crafts erhu. His new wife intends to make flutes and bells to make their services in the village indispensable. The soft caresses of the two strings of the erhu melt Louis Lin's heart every time she hears him play. Louis Lin has other ideas than allowing them to escape her forever and packs to travel. At midnight they marry and carry their few possessions for their new home on their back until they reach a horse and cart merchant. They travel the rest of the way together with the comforting sound of hooves to share the burden of distance between them and Louis Lin. Grateful, they have escaped her. They settle into a new married life with bright eyes and plenty of impromptu cuddles until one evening. I am hungry. Can you feed me after my long travels? The gray hood of the travel cloak hides her face. But the new wife sees the soft hands of a lady and red and gold expensive shoes with blood blisters on her white long cotton socks. My husband, please serve our traveler while I fetch water to comfort her sore feet. Her husband stares in horror at those soft hands and pale pink nails. Good evening? Would you like to sit down? The traveler nods and peeks at the object of her affection. He hasn't changed, except his eyes are bright with joy, thinks Louis Lin. She twists her mouth and her eyes darken. The couple are both in their U-shaped home stoking flames and tending food for their guest. Too busy to notice bales of hay inserted underneath their home and in door fronts to block their exit. Kindling ignites and Louis Lin stands back to watch the heat and smoke turn to burning flame as the wood and hay home rages. Flames from the single-story house, illuminate the night sky. My love, I am trapped. My wife, I will get to you. He knocks through walls to fetch his wife, and the oil-soaked roof collapses on them. Their hands and ash-burned faces look towards their guest. Help us. If I can't, I have you, my love, no one can. This is not love. It's obsession. I curse you forever to make others suffer and never feel the burn of love in your heart. Two sets of screams increase then fade. Flames burn all to the ground and neighbors make a shrine to honor their suffering. Over the years, Louis Lin changes her name several times to sidestep the fact that she never dies. You really do look like your mother, says Louis Lin's third custom gown client of the day. Thank you. I am grateful to her for leaving me this building and her Paris fashion business. All our family have a designer's eye. Yes, I can see that. I will take this gown in a day dress, and this style with thin straps for the evening in velvet midnight blue with a matching wrap. Francois, get Mrs. Beecham's coat. Yes, madam. The blonde man with a pink bow tie settles the last customer in her car, giving her driver her purchases from her previous visit. Lock the door and turn off the salon lights. I will write a new wanted card tonight. Another poor girl to torment for her blood, then? Of course, my needs are first. My eternal beauty is what I need to one day find love. Julie drops her study books as the wind pulls her birthday scarf from her neck into the courtyard that only the rich ladies of Paris visit. Not more mud on my college books. The professor will nag me in between lectures for this. I need a job for the Christmas holidays, so I can buy the next textbook for January, she thinks, tugging at her red ringlets to calm herself. She runs after her scarf, and as she picks it up, notices the sign. Wanted part-time salon staff, no experience required. Some call it fate, I suppose, but I call it a job, thinks Julie. The salon bell rings and Julie stares at the white marble floors of the entrance to the premises. As she walks down the hallway, she stares right and sees 5 machinists pushing midnight blue fabric and black lining through huge sewing machines. A frosted window is at the far end with a bell on the wall. Julie side-eyes the blonde guy who is walking from the huge salon to the hallway to greet her. Good afternoon, how can I help you today? Looking for something special? Come in, have a hot chocolate, and we will discuss it. Francois' sales technique is very polished, and before long the girl is trying on garments she has no money to purchase. I am here for the job, Francois, not to buy clothes. Madam won't let you serve in the salon looking like this. No, it will scare away our important clientele. A soft, slow voice behind them both has Julie jump. Do you like this red coat? I do. But I'm here for the job, please. Your garments are exquisite. I know. All my designs have a purpose. Madam removes the coat from its display dummy and pushes it towards Julie to try on. Julie admires herself in the mirror and a new daydream of her as a singer glides into her thoughts. Have this and pay me back a little at a time. You intend to be here for years, don't you? I think the both of you are weird, but almost a free coat of this caliber, which I will never be able to afford any other way, sounds like a deal. Thinks Julie. If you let me, it will be an honor. Am I renting this coat long-term or actually having it? Never return it, dear. As Madam hands the huge cream and black salon purchase bag to the girl, it cuts Julie's hand. Blood trickles into the bag but disappears. The cut stings, and Julie feels faint. Julie blinks as the chill of early morning air trickles in from an open French garden door. Her eyes feel dry, and her tongue sticks to the roof of her mouth. A red-black velvet dress is in front of her with a note pinned to it. This goes well with your red coat. I will see you Monday for the winter holiday job. Madam has accepted you. Julie slips the knee-length velvet dress into the bag. She spins and claps her hands while she admires the rich-looking woman in the mirror, looking back at her. Time to go and feed Raymond before he licks all my milk from the fridge, thinks Julie. Saturday night, with her makeup borrowed from her older sister and her new heeled shoes on, Julie moves from side to side to admire herself in her bedroom mirror. I feel a different person. Maybe I could pretend to be an older, wealthy woman just for tonight, thinks Julie. The man Julie attracts seeks a millionairess for his business venture. Scamming desperate women is my business, thinks the oversexed and overhear Lord Farquois. The man's compliments are absorbed by innocent Julie as her head is turned. I think he loves me, she thinks. She dabs her nose in the ladies' powder room and feels excitement for her new future. What do you mean you can invest in my business, you tight-fisted woman? You are wearing this season's Madame Amour's first winter collection that was released yesterday, reported in Ladies Who Lunch magazine this morning. The man is no gentleman. Are all peers of the realm this awful, thinks Julie. Pulling away from his thick-fingered grasp, Julie's red coat loses a covered red button and rolls into a rain-filled drain. Exhausted by his cruelty, Julie runs to the salon for safety and finds the front door open. Is that you, madam? Yes, I am designing for a new client. He wants a full travel case of business clothes packed in a month, ready for his new department store to open. Julie smells strong coffee by Madame's elbow and breathes in its aroma. Francois, another cup for Julie while she helps me with my designs. A china cup and saucer rest in Julie's hand as she recounts her distressing evening. Unusually, Madame is soothing and wipes the tears with her lace-trimmed cotton handkerchief. Not all men are honest or gracious, dear. We women are their objects to toy with. But we need to learn to pay that forward so we don't get burned. Over the next few weeks, each time Madame gifts a new gown or cloak to Julie, there is mishap and mayhem. Julie begins to change into a vain woman who craves to be adored by men. She bounces off the flame of their cruel intentions and pretends to grow a thicker skin, though in reality she feels more lost than when she didn't have the expensive clothes and money from Madame. One evening at the salon, Julie writes the cost of each bag of clothes and realizes she will always work here and suffer from men who think she is rich or fake. The salon bell tinkles and the waft of sandalwood and cinnamon rushes past Julie's nose on the cold winter breeze. Julie reaches for the French window to the garden and shuts it. Francoise is in the back garden smoking a cigarette on a black holder with a cream feather jacket wrapped around him as a thin, ineffective barrier from the evening chill. Good evening, sir. Welcome to Madame Amour's. Are you here to collect a sample of your suits? Hello, George. Ignore our salon lady. She is new and doesn't know we are dining tonight. George stares at Julie's thin alabaster neck and bare shoulders in the long velvet red gown she admires in the mirror. Madame returns to her office to finish applying her lipstick. When she returns to the salon, Francois is curled up on the chaise lounge asleep, hoping to avoid her wrath. Is George gone to smooth his hair? A note from George to Madame in a swirled black ink pen has her pick up a vase and throw it at the mirror. Shards of sharp reflective silver scatter over the cold marble floor. How dare that bin steal my dinner date? No one steals from me and lives. In a screaming rage, more than mirrors are broken that night. Julie finds the salon locked next morning, and for that week. George collects her from her apartment stairs and is a gentleman all week until she finds herself in his huge house. With her dress torn and her mascara smeared down her powdered cheeks, Julie sneaks around the back gate to enter the salon from the garden. In her hand are 6 huge cream salon bags with black edging and handles. She finds Madame in her office in a black hat with a pulled-down veil. Have you had a death in the family? Soon, maybe. Madam side-eyes Julie and notices all the salon bags in the door threshold to her office. I have come to return these garments as I have had nothing but mishap and pain every time I wear them. I also realize I will work here until I am 90 to pay this huge bill. I cannot do that as I go to England for a new university year, as my professor has referred me to Oxford for my studies. Take the clothes with you and enjoy them as you live the next few years. When you are a famous scholar, visit me and I will make you your graduation gown. I have no intention of ever returning here, thinks Julie. Thank you, madam, I will. Julie leaves the salon and turns outside to take one last look at the clean windows that used to excite her. Madam lifts her veil and turns her newly tattooed cheek to the mirror. She picks up the phone and dials the number of the other immortal who has the same curse as her. The tattoo on my back has moved around to one side of my face. This means you are not making amends or helping people. Instead, you are still weaving gold torment thread into the lining of the clothes you make. Yes, you will always be immortal. However, being vindictive to others will earn you a full body of black tattoos and a haggard face. You will... Madam put down the phone and tears dripped onto her wooden office table. Damn humans, she thinks, and bites her bottom lip. Outside, Julie struggles down the road with all 6 bags until she sees a group of workmen burning dirty fabric in a tall drum to refurbish an office. Can I add some bits to burn, please? Help yourself, love. The workmen watch the slender young woman throw the Parisian salon bags into the flames and quickly walk away. Blimey, what a waste. They are Madame Amour's bags. My wife loves her stuff. Inside Madame's office, she is burning and soon turns to ash. Her shoes remain by the dark gloss wooden chair until Francois brings in her coffee and biscuits. Her design pad for her new collection is open for Francois to see. He calls Madame's mobile and a hum echoes in the wooden left-hand drawer. He kicks her shoes as he reaches the drawer. She never takes off her shoes in her office, he thinks. A month later, Francois has finished his first collection and has Madame's estate lawyer visit him. Madame has left him the salon building and her huge fortune. Francois thanks the lawyer after an awkward cup of coffee together. Then he calls a bulldozer company and requests they flatten the salon. Packing his 18th century jacket in his overnight bag, he leaves for Italy for Milan Fashion Week. At last, I can follow my dream. Now that empty-hearted crow is gone, I am free from my life stuck to her, thinks Francois. He clicks the salon door shut for the last time, but never looks back. His designs are on a garment rack, safely in the truck, on the main street. He gets in the truck with the radio loud with Chart's music blaring. It signals a new era for him. The clock on the wall struck 11:00 p.m. The hum of the refrigerator, the only sound cutting through the silence of the sleek kitchen. Sylvia, blonde and beautiful, the CEO of a mega-tech company, stood poised like a queen in her marble palace. She sipped from her glass of Merlot, the wine dark as blood. Her eyes, icy blue, fixated on the vial of cyanide sitting innocently on the countertop, a lethal promise in its tiny glass casing. The world seemed still as she held it in her hand, cold like the winter nights that cloaked her darkest impulses. Tonight was a night like any other, a night that brought out the side of her she buried deep during the day, the side that only awakened under the cover of midnight. A prized catch, she thought with satisfaction. Her lips curled into a smile as she thought of him. Anthony, the tall, dark and brooding 24-year-old who had been clamoring for her affection for weeks, now sitting in the small dining room off the side of the kitchen, blissfully unaware of what the night held for him. He had no idea he was about to be more than just her guest. He was going to be her final course. Sylvia glanced over at him through the open doorway. His strong jawline was shadowed by the dim light. His hands rested casually on the table, and his eyes held the faint glint of desire that all of her victims wore when they thought they'd caught her attention. It had been so easy to lure him in, like all the others before him. Just a few coy words, a seductive smile, and they all fell, thinking they were special, thinking they were the exception. She turned her attention back to the simmering pot on the stove, stirring the rich, creamy soup with a practiced hand. The aroma of roasted garlic and herbs filled the air, a perfect blend of luxury and death. She had always loved the artistry of cooking, the precision it required, just like her killings. Tonight's dish was going to be exquisite, enhanced by the few drops of cyanide she would so delicately swirl into his bowl. A late-night rendezvous had been his suggestion, as if he were in control of how the night would unfold. She chuckled to herself, swirling her wineglass, watching the liquid reflect the kitchen's low light. She feigned exhaustion earlier, telling him about her long hours at the office, how she just needed a good meal and some company. In reality, her day had ended early, plenty of time to prepare the mansion, clean the kitchen, and set the stage for tonight's performance. She always waited until the perfect time, when the sky was pitch black and the stars were hidden. There was something about the bleakest hours of the night that let her true nature breathe, like a beast released from a cage. As she ladled the soup into the bowl, her grin deepened. The poison blended perfectly with the velvety broth, undetectable, but deadly. She walked to the dining room, her heels tapping against the floor, each step deliberate, predatory. Anthony looked up at her, his brown eyes lighting up as she approached. "Smells amazing," he said, flashing a charming smile. "You really went all out tonight." Sylvia set the bowl in front of him, her fingers grazing the back of his neck for just a moment, feeling the warmth of his skin. "Only the best for you," she replied sweetly, watching as he picked up the spoon, his gaze never leaving her. "You really didn't have to go all out like this," Anthony said, as he eyed the growing plates of roasted Cornish hens in a pomegranate reduction, a gnocchi with a herded marinara, and the cheesecake centered in the middle of the table. His eyes widening with anticipation at each and every moment as he looked at everything, thinking of how lucky he was to have met not only a sweet woman, but one who loved to look after her boys, one that he wouldn't know that her ulterior motives were the same with the 15 other boys that had preceded him. Sylvia, looking at the red marks of her lipstick staining the glass as she swirls the wine, seeing the red gloss in the candlelight. Why isn't he eating the soup yet? "Sylvia?" "Yes, Tony? I've really been enjoying my time with you these last few weeks." His young love clouding his better judgment as he tries his best to hold down the feelings for the woman that is almost 2 years younger than his own parents. "You should really try that soup, Tony," Saliva says, her anxiety being palpable. "In a minute," Anthony says as he looks across the table at the woman who he finds himself infatuated with, more and more by each and every passing second. Sylvia, finding herself getting more and more impatient. Cyanide doesn't go impotent as soup gets cold, but a mouth won't take in the whole amount of soup necessary to kill one. "You should really try the soup, Tony," she says with excitement, her words leaving her mouth with pure lust for him. The lust all being fake. She secretly despises him. Even for being tall, dark and brooding, she finds him boring, uncharismatic and duller than a dying light bulb. This isn't her ending a life. This is her cleansing the earth. She sat down across from him, wine glass in hand, watching with a quiet thrill as he took his first sip of the soup. Time seemed to stretch, each second a heartbeat. The faint clink of the spoon against the bowl, his satisfied hum, the wine swirling in her glass. All of it was a symphony to her ears. He had no idea that with each mouthful, he was drawing closer to his end. Sylvia leaned forward slightly, her voice soft. "Tell me, Anthony," she purred. "What do you think of the soup?" He smiled, wiping the corner of his mouth. "It's perfect," he said, his voice thick with gratitude. "Just like you." Her smile widened, a flicker of something darker in her eyes. "I'm glad you think so." Because tonight she would be perfect at her craft. The candlelight flickered, casting dancing shadows on Sylvia's face as she watched Anthony eat, each spoonful bringing him closer to his inevitable fate. His praise echoed in her ears, but she hardly cared for his words now. Her mind was racing, the thrill of control filling her as she envisioned the final moments, the collapse, the panic, the gasps for air. She leaned back, swirling her wine lazily, eyes following every move he made. Anthony looked up occasionally, flashing her that smile she had once found tolerable, but now found repulsive. He was clueless. They always were. For a moment, she let her mind wander back to the others. Young, handsome, eager. All so desperate for her attention. She had given it to them, just enough to lure them in. Sylvia saw herself not as a killer, but as a force of nature, weeding out the weak, cleansing her world of those she deemed unworthy. Each kill left her feeling more alive, more in control of the power that surged through her veins. Her heart began to race as she watched Anthony reach for his wine glass, washing down the poison-laced soup. His hand trembled slightly as he took a sip, the faintest sign that the cyanide was already beginning to work its way through his system. Sylvia smiled, knowing the real show was about to begin. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her voice smooth, laced with just a hint of faux concern. Anthony blinked, his brow furrowing slightly. Fine," he muttered, but there was an edge to his voice, a subtle unease. His hand reached up to rub his chest, and his eyes flickered toward her, confused. Sylvia's smile widened. "Are you sure? You look a little pale." Anthony frowned, his breath coming in shallow bursts now, his hand moving to his throat as if trying to loosen a collar that wasn't there. I think something's wrong," he managed, his voice hoarse. He tried to stand, but his legs wobbled beneath him, betraying him as the poison took hold. "Relax," Sylvia whispered, rising from her seat with deliberate grace. "It'll be over soon." Anthony's eyes widened with sudden, horrifying realization as he staggered backward, knocking over his chair. He tried to speak, to plead, but his body was betraying him. He collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, his limbs twitching as the cyanide claimed him. Sylvia stood over him, watching with cold detachment as the life drained from his eyes. His once strong, dark features now twisted in agony, his body convulsing in the final throes of death. It was almost poetic, she thought, how easily life could be snuffed out. The room fell silent again, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant ticking of the clock. Sylvia took one last sip of her wine, savoring the moment. Another successful evening. Another name to add to her list. She stepped over Anthony's lifeless body and walked back into the kitchen, placing the wine glass in the sink with a quiet clink. She glanced at the clock. 11:45 p.m. It had been a flawless execution, like clockwork. As she wiped the last traces of lipstick from her glass and tidied the kitchen, Sylvia smiled to herself. She had a full day ahead tomorrow, but tonight she was perfect at her craft. My eyes flutter open, and I lift my right fist to rub the blurry sleep from my eyes. It's so dark in here, dark enough to give refuge to the shadow monsters that live beneath my bed or in the corners of my bedroom walls. I hear the wooden hallway floorboards groaning under the weight of slow and dubious footsteps approaching outside my door. Mom always talks about the ghost that lives in our basement. He's supposedly a young soldier who passed away at war according to the previous homeowner. Mom said I might even hear his whispers at night. I seize up in sudden fear, hopeful that the ghost will pass by without noticing me. I clutch the book I fell asleep reading to my chest, seeking any source of comfort. At 15 years old, I feel ashamed that I'm still afraid of the dark. I shuffle deeper into my bed as if it's going to swallow me whole and hide me from the darkness. My eyes begin to adapt, and I immediately notice the tall, shadowy figure slowly creeping past my cracked door. I clamp my hands around my mouth to muffle my sudden intake of air and squeeze my eyes shut. Fear quakes through my limbs, and my hands tremble. Every muscle in my body is tense and stiff, paralyzed by the anticipation of coming face to face with something made of other people's nightmares. I stop breathing, and the silence of the sleeping house only makes the sound of my own heart beat louder. It slams against my ribs like a galloping horse. Can the ghost hear my heart beating in my chest? The shadow continues down the hallway towards my parents' bedroom. I release my mouth and finally take another breath. Another door creaks open in the hallway, and the sound of faint whispers can be heard, but I can't tell what is being said. In a brief moment of bravery, I lunge out of my warm bed and race to whip open my door. But the hallway is empty, and not even an echo of a whisper lingers. Where did he go? Was I imagining him, or was it a dream? I feel a hint of disappointment. I wanted to catch a ghost wandering the house at night. My brothers will be so jealous that they missed it when I tell them tomorrow morning. Dad won't ever believe me, though. He always says, "Your mother makes that crap up." He just doesn't have the imagination that we all share. He doesn't believe in fairy tales or ghosts and goblins. The only things he believes in are new toys like a new truck to look cool in, a new computer to play online games with his friends until early morning hours, and a new Jessica to prance around town with. I'm not exaggerating when I say there have been multiple Jessicas, but there's one in particular that Mom hates the most, Jessica Mathewson. Jessica Mathewson and Dad took us kids to the mall one time and pretended she was our mother. Mom sobbed herself to sleep that night and didn't leave her bed for 2 days, except to bathe once. The third morning was the worst morning after the mall incident. That third morning, my mom's parents brought us home from an impromptu sleepover at their house. Mom came down the stairs with big red puffy eyes and a cut on her bottom lip that had just begun to scab over. She said it was a silly cleaning accident. A vase fell on her head and broke. A piece of the shattered ceramic glass must have sliced my lip, she suggested that day. However, I saw the faint marks of a fresh bruise developing around her ankle, as if someone had dragged her by her foot. I saw the raw flesh around her wrists that appeared swollen and chafed. I noticed the broken family picture frames in the kitchen garbage can and the missing coffee table from the family room. I even saw the raised red lines along my father's forearms, but I didn't dare to ask why. The last time I asked a question that I was not supposed to ask, I wound up with my back flat on the ground and a tight fist around my throat. To make matters worse, the screams made me wet my cotton leggings. That was a huge mistake that cost me my consciousness. Hours later, I had woken in the same spot on the floor, alone, wet, cold, and shaking. After last night's spooky ghost encounter, I spent the majority of the morning reading. It's my only source of escape. My father had finally returned home around noon from his weekly ice hockey practice. He's working the night shift at the police department tonight, so he's gone before dinner. He stopped in and out so quickly that I'd never known he was even here if I hadn't seen him stroll in with his giant hockey duffel bag, or if I hadn't heard him and Mom roaring in the upstairs bathroom. Other than that, Mom has been silent all day, hiding in her bedroom alone with the door shut. I worry about her. After Dad leaves, I sneak up the stairs as best as I can without stepping on the loose planks of the wooden stairs. I approach Mom's room with hesitation and gently press my right ear against the hollow wood door. I hear shaky sobs mixed with sniffles and hiccups. She's murmuring, I assume on the phone with someone, but I can't understand the hushed hiccupy cries through the door. A heavy-weighted feeling presses down on my chest after hearing her in pain. I take a step back and leave to preserve her dignity and give her privacy. In truth, I'm avoiding her because I know that with that pain comes resentment and anger. Whenever we roll into that stage of this endless cycle of grief, she turns to me as her only source of trauma dumping. I slip back downstairs unnoticed and decide it's time to grab something to eat because neither parent cooked today. It's summer break, and my brothers are playing with their friends, so that means I'm on my own. It's a little too early for dinner, but it's too late for lunch, so I'll just make a quick snack. I wander around the kitchen and take inventory of the food we have on hand. Truthfully, it's not much. Maybe a few boxes of pasta, a can of tuna fish, a bottle of ketchup, some mac and cheese, and half a hot dog in a Ziploc bag. As if Mom had read my mind, or maybe heard my stomach whining, she appeared behind me in the kitchen. Her quiet demeanor told me to be gentle with her. I distract her and ask if we can make something to eat. She hesitates for a moment as if she's contemplating my request. She begins to pace frantically around the kitchen in search of food, like I did. She stops and turns towards me as I stand in the doorway of the kitchen. She approaches me and gently pushes me out of the kitchen by my shoulders and asks me to come back in a bit because she is going to whip something up. I won't say no to a break from cooking, so I head to my room and continue reading my favorite sci-fi novel. 30 minutes later, Mom pops her head in my door with an alarmed look on her face. Get ready quick. We need to make a trip to the store for some milk for the mac and cheese, she instructed me. She's fidgety and breathy as she speed walks back down the stairs without waiting for me to respond. I hop out of bed and mark the page I left off at. I head downstairs, get my shoes on, and hop in the car. My oldest brother Jace calls shotgun, so I'm stuck in the back seat with the car seat for my younger brother Wade. Guess what I saw last night? I taunted the boys. I saw the ghost. No way. Jace yells as he whips his head around to peer back at me. His eyes are wide with wonder and his mouth is gaping open in shock. I knew he would be jealous. Mom goes stiff at my statement, though. Her hands grip the steering wheel like it's the only thing keeping her seated. Did she see him too? I don't ask, though, because I fear the conversation will veer into a darker territory that I don't want to talk about right now. She always hijacks the conversation to make it about my father. I'm honestly so sick of hearing it, but I could never break her heart by telling her that. She's fragile and soft, a passive people pleaser. Whereas my father, he's a narcissist to his core. The word empathy does not exist in his vocabulary. We continue the drive in silence, but we pass by the grocery store. Confusion muddles my thoughts, and I look at my mom through the rearview mirror. I can see her face is tense, her jaw is clenched, and she's grinding her teeth together. Her whole body is leaning forward, like she is looking to read the street signs. She drives us to a neighboring town, and we pull into a small, narrow driveway of a little two-story home. It's a greenhouse with a silver chain link fence around the yard. Mom doesn't speak still and ignores the questions that Jason and I toss at her. She exits the car, and we follow. I get Wade out of his car seat and we enter the house. I am immediately surprised by my mother's entire family sitting and standing around in the living room, watching us enter with somber looks on their faces. I instantly recognize where we are. We are at my aunt's daycare center, which she owns and operates in a residential home. The silence in the room is deafening as I make eye contact with aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents. My grandma beckons me over, and I sit next to her. "What is this?" I ask her quietly. I think I already know the answer, when she looks down and then at my mother before answering me. "My pretty girl, you know your Grammy loves you, right?" She asks me rhetorically. I nod my head in agreement anyway, and wait for her to continue. "Your father needs some time alone right now, so you guys will be coming to live here for a little while," she states gently. "Here, in Aunt Kim's daycare center?" I asked incredulously. All I get is an up and down nod as a response. My grandma holds a grimace on her face as she locks eyes with my mom again. My Aunt Yvonne interjects the awkward silence and offers to show us kids our rooms. We walk upstairs to see there are only 2 bedrooms and a tiny bathroom. Mom and I are set up for the small rectangular bedroom on the left, and the boys have a bunk bed set up in the large square room to the right. Mom approaches the top of the stairs behind us, and I turn to look at her. Her eyes are glossy with wet tears collecting in the lower lids. She sucks in a deep breath, and a single tear rolls down her right cheek, leaving a wet trail from her cheek to her chin. Her bottom lip begins to tremble, and I open my arms wide, knowing she needs to be held. I know she wants to tell me she is so sorry, and that she feels like she has no other choice. She always gives me that answer, so I don't push her for more. She lets her sobs loose and leans into me. Her head rests on top of mine, and her body quakes from the violent weeping. Her arms wrap around me and pull me tightly. Just for a second, I allow myself to feel comforted. As quickly as I felt it, it left as she let go of me and attempted to compose herself enough to lead us back downstairs. My heart not only aches for her, but it also aches for the little girl inside of me who just wants a hug. It feels like a bag of bricks has been stuffed into my chest, and there's an ache in my throat, making it feel tight. I follow behind Mom, and as we descend the stairs, I whisper to her in an all-knowing tone, "We never needed milk, did we?" Epilogue. 15 years later. I sit at the table with Dad laughing about the not-so-spooky haunted house we just walked through. It's October and Halloween is around the corner. My father and I get along well like a friendship. We visit with one another for dinner every few months to catch up. Tonight, we picked Mexican food because it's a shared favorite of ours. As I'm dipping my tortilla chip in some delicious and creamy queso, I ask my dad if believes in ghosts because I always believed he thought it was pure fictional fantasy. To my surprise, he does in fact believe in ghosts now. "What about the ghost that lived with us when you and Mom were still together?" I inquire. Of course, I remember it because there was no ghost. I paid the old man across the street to watch over the house when I was at work, and he saw your mom inviting Adam inside whenever I was on night shift," he said with a laugh and a smile that left his face before you could meet his eyes. Every fiber in my body went still with shock. How did I not notice that? How could I have been so naive to believe such a childish story, even as an adult? I suppose I will add those questions to the long list that I know I will never receive an answer to. I will never understand the toxic relationship my parents clung to for so long. I suppose something was always missing between them, like a cake baked without the flour, or just like the mac and cheese without the milk. It was a cold fall morning, and all was still. Jenny was calm and content. Her husband was still sleeping off his hangover. She sat on the old chair they placed beside the back door. No one could see the swollen pulp of a left eye that she received the night before. The breeze kissed it softly, and the air carried the coming of rain that would soon fall. The vibrations of her husband's pounding footsteps shook her through the home and to the outside. Jenny sighed and prepared herself for the coming tantrum. He thankfully left after eating breakfast and headed off to work. Jenny was alone in the house to be herself until he would return. Her stomach churned and wallowed. Her husband hated watching Jenny eat, so the breakfast was only for him. She wetted her lips and wringed her bony hands. She didn't remember the last time she was allowed to eat. She opened the pantry to find nothing of use. Her husband forgot to give her grocery money before he left. And so, there was nothing. She drank some leftover soda that was left out last night in a can by his recliner and went along with her lonely day. She walked to the store with some money she saved in her nickel jar. She bought a few vegetables and a liver for stew. He hated stew, but then again, he hated everything she made for him. So, she got it started, trying to put her all into it, hoping it would make his day a little better, considering how shit her husband must have felt from the night before. She tried not to care, but her anxiety was crushing her insides. Maybe a nibble would help calm her before he returned. She nibbled, and nibbled, and nibbled, until all the meat from the stew had gone. Oh shit. Jenny turned off the stove and jumped away from it instinctively, hand covering her open mouth. She had no more money to replace it, and who knows how her husband would react. Her stomach pounded solid against her skin, and her sweat turned cold against her goosebumps. She had to come up with something fast. She went from home to home, asking for anything she could use, but alas, she turned up nothing. Where could she even find a liver so quickly? The house shook from the door's slam. Her husband had returned. Jenny spun around him with a smile. Dinner had just finished cooking. Her smile faded quickly. He wasn't mad from the hangover. He was already drunk again. He saw the soup in the pot, rolled his eyes, and muttered something in her direction. Jenny didn't hear him, so she assumed she didn't need to have heard it, but she was wrong. He flicked his rough hand against her black eye hard while yelling. Of course she should have heard him. She should have known better. Her head vibrated and her eye watered into its closed crease. At least he went to eat his dinner after. Jenny watched him as he ate, watched the meat touch his lips, watched him swallow the pieces. She shivered harshly, popping a few of her bones. Her nerves were getting to her as the vomit coated her throat and her stomach twists returned with a vengeance. Should I tell him what he's eating? Would he forgive me? Questions and no answers she could give herself, but there was no way she would ask him. Jenny knew how he felt about her, how much he hated her. There was no way he would ever need to find out what she did. Please, God, I know I've done wrong. No, I did it in fear. Please forgive me. She worded just above a whisper. She clenched her small hands together, clawing into her knuckles as she prayed silently in the kitchen. She stood there stiff as a corpse watching her husband eat. He finished his bowl, and she retrieved it, washed it, and put it away. Jenny was all function in her praying, her body moving of its own accord, just as it was when she collected her new liver. She hurried up the stairs making as little noise as possible, trying to not upset her husband. She was alone in bed before her husband joined her hours later. She couldn't sleep. Knowing what she did, she refused to sleep. What if they weren't dead? What if they wanted the liver back? Jenny sighed. You sound delusional, she thought. I am crazy. Suddenly a loud bang echoed through the house. Jenny shot up wide awake. What was that? Were the cops here for her? It happened again. This time she could hear it clearer. It was from the front door downstairs. She could swear they were shouting but couldn't make it out. Bang, 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 the knocking pounded harder. Suddenly, "Where's my liver?" One. Jenny nearly pissed herself at that moment. It couldn't be. She was just crazy. She heard it again and again. It was louder than the pounding. She shook her husband as violently as a wolf thrashing prey until he awoke. He was ready to blow a fuse until he paused like a deer in the headlights. He heard it too. They looked at each other for a moment, petrified. The pounding had stopped, but the voice was getting louder, along with a consistent dragging sound. "Where's my liver? Where's my liver? No, no, wait." They heard it stumble up the stairs. As they sat there, thinking on what to do, a sick thought crossed Jenny's mind. Maybe she could rid herself of two monsters in one evening. It reached the bedroom door. It didn't have a lock. After a second, the door drifted open. "Where's my liver?" Bias! Jenny shot up on the bed, pointing to her husband's stomach. "He has it." Her husband had no time to react as the creature rushed him and retrieved its missing token from him.